Welcome to the Boba Joe Show. If this is your first night, you have to fight.
Gorilla Monsoon.
Special guest
Wow.
Gorilla Monsoon.
I'm being trolled over by a big fluffy boy here to start the show today.
Which one's that? Which counts?
That's Brody. He was knocking on the door just before we started recording. Like, okay, I'll let you in for a little while, Bodicus. Well, hello, everybody. Hope everyone is keeping well. Hope you all had a good week. Hope you're ready for some punishment.
Well, I hope so too.
The Punisher. We
get into
character chat.
Yeah, we'll get into a little intro here. I think most people have heard the Punisher, but just in case you haven't, we'll do a quick little intro. We're going to talk about mainly some of the Garth Ennis stories. Was one of the better, well, not just better, the best writer ever that's been associated with the Punisher. Not to put down any of the people that came before him, but he was just like made to write that character. He did it like so well. But yeah, it's a quick overview. The Punisher, Frank Castle, or Frank I'll butcher this because it's Italian, but Frank Castiglione is like the full long name. I think it's, and Frank is also actually means like Francis. Is one of Marvel's most iconic anti-heroes. A decorated US Marine veteran, Frank becomes a ruthless vigilante after his wife and children are murdered in a mob crossfire. With no powers, just elite military training, weapons mastery, and iron will, he wages a one-man war on crime. Unlike most heroes, the Punisher has no qualms about using lethal force, making him a darker, morally challenging figure in the Marvel Universe. So he started back in the 70s, and he was very much in the mold of like Bronson's Death Wish and Dirty Harry and that style of character.
I was reading that first appearance issue recently, this week, in fact, in work. I was getting some reading time in the office.
I think there used to be one at the comic shop I went to when I was first there on the wall for years, like one of the original, you know, they had stuff around the wall, the Bear like an Amazing 200, whichever one with Golden Dies or whatever. And they had like that 129 of the Punisher on the wall. It's cool.
I have the it's the first volume of the Essential Punisher. Do you remember Marvel used to do those collections where it was all black and white? Yeah, them. They do the trick, cheap and cheerful. Not so cheap these days, but back in the day, they were, you know, an affordable way to actually read this stuff.
Yeah, I bought a volume of the Wolverine Essential ones back when they were doing those, like the first volume. And I travelled all the way on the train back when I used to live in Victoria, 2 hours on the train to the city, go to the comic shop, bought a bunch of stuff, picked it up, went, oh, that's a bargain, Wolverine, whatever. I didn't know what the Essential line was. I just thought they're just cheap trades. Didn't know a black and white. Got home, opened up, and I'm like, oh, I was really annoyed it was all black and white because I didn't know.
That just pissed you right off, I'd imagine.
Oh, it did, because I wouldn't have bought it. I was really annoyed. Would have instead bought something like the Wolverine mini-series by Frank Miller or something, you know. But yeah, so he first appeared in 1974 at Amazing Spider-Man 129, where, I mean, it's written here, but I can close my eyes and you know, if you've heard it, if you know Spider-Man comics, everyone who's long-term Spider-Man knows the Punisher where he started off. But yeah, hired by the Jackal to assassinate Spider-Man, because everyone in the Spider-Man comics are always trying to convince you he's a bad guy and he's a menace, that wall crawler, like they always are. But eventually, you know, finds out obviously Spider-Man's not a bad guy. And so he starts off as just this kind of simplistic character and kind of like one and done. There's no real need to use him ever again. It's pretty much just for that story, forget about it. But then they bring him back again in giant size Spider-Man, or it's Spider-Man and Punisher here, which is kind of like, you know, how they had Marvel team up, it would be someone and someone. So he comes back there for a nice big 68-page special. He had some other guest appearances over the years, of course, in the early Spider-Mans, and had run-ins. He would have ongoing run-ins with Spider-Man, Daredevil, Wolverine, and pretty much any kind of street-level hero or superhero he'd have some kind of run-ins with down the track. But and at times he'd like fight Moon Knight or Captain America as well. But he had his other cool solo story, which I always forget the name of these old ones because they always go back to before characters had their own titles. Everything was like Amazing Fantasy or Journey into Mystery, and it would be rotating characters and whatever. So we got Marvel Preview number 2 from 1975, which is just here. And I didn't realize I've never owned that or read it, but I picked up, there's a trade that's got this and another story comes after it. And it was quite cheap. It came out back in the 90s, but I just bought it a few weeks ago on eBay for like $10, and it's actually got the story, and it's black and white, and it's got the art's a bit more detailed. Like you can tell they really took the time doing this, and it wasn't your typical monthly. It almost feels like a mini graphic novel kind of story. It's like really beautiful artwork in it. And then we had the mini
beautiful cover.
It's like was it 84 or 86? What did it say on there? 86, yeah, 5-issue limited series. I think it was meant to be 4 and then they extended it by 1 or something like that. But this miniseries is really excellent. And I read a trade of this way back in the 90s, but never owned it until this year. One of those Marvel Epic, the color phone book, thick 400-page ones. It's in one of them. So I was pretty happy to actually finally get to own this series because I've read it several times, but never owned it before this year. It's quite cool.
I only ever read it, apart from in the black and white reprints. I only actually got a proper read of the full color version in digital form.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'd read an old trade and then the digital. And
yeah, I love those covers, though. They look fantastic.
They used to have one of the earliest trades of this at the 90s at the comic shop I used to go to that had, I didn't really know what it was at the time, but there was a very early trade that was just these issues way back then. That's where these guys live on my shelf on the top left there. They're on the top of the pile because I was just rereading them in the last 6 months. And before that, I was reading the Turtles. So the Punisher was down the bottom there. He's been up the top, so I could grab it out a bit easier. If we grab them off the shelf and can see, these ones are picked up over the last 12 months. These are just general random ones coming out in this Epic collection. Ones that are about 400 pages each for random stuff mostly from the 90s, I guess. But they're all enjoyable stories, and got that Circle of Bloods in that middle one. But anytime these pop up on Amazon, I just grab them. If they turn up, I don't care when it's from. I have read all the mainline Punisher books. He's had War Journal, War Zone, and mini series. Got Cancel Cover. I've read everything, but some of it more than once. Like some of it read a couple of times. And one of these ones here, you get one of these old like those Marvel, I forget the name of the damn things. It was Marvel Universe profile book things they used to do, where they'd do them in the back and then they'd collect them into actual volumes. So it's kind of cool getting to see the old white boots and white gloves look from his early days.
And also, I love those old Marvel profiles. They're just great. I love when you'd be getting a few kind of just single issues and they'd have them randomly spliced in, or you could actually buy those. There was actually collections of them. I can't remember what the actual name of the series was.
I think it was just Marvel Universe or something like that.
Yeah. Gojitron, are you listening? Use your memory.
I used to have some. I used to have some dollar ones I picked up, and that they were falling apart, and that were cool. They did Transformers ones too, 4 issues.
Yes, that's right.
Profiles.
That's right. Yeah, give you some context to what's like going on here.
This is like before Wikipedia and Wiki fan pages existed. You had these books and profiles, and they were just super detailed. They had like more than you'd ever want to know. Like there's enough in there if you want to make your own like role playing game stats or something from these. They're just like over the top with some other detail in them. And there was just some covers and artwork and galleries in the back of some of these. They're really beautiful artwork.
How were you first introduced to the character? Was it through the comics, or what way did he come about here?
Well, I was aware he existed. I think, I don't know, I can't say definitively the first time I've seen him or heard of him. I just know, it's like I pretty much always just knew he existed, like Batman, is around in the background of stuff. So I don't know the first story I read, but I can tell you in the early 90s when I used to be going to the comic shop, well, probably close to the mid 90s, but there was a time where I used to go occasionally before I started like buying stuff like a Maniac was there every week for years. There would be issues in the dollar bins, there were early issues of like Punisher War Journal, and it'll be like a Jim Lee cover, and I would just like pick it up the same way I would pick up a Spider-Man thing that was $1, and they were just like random issues, and I would read them. And at some point, I had 20 or 30 or 40 random single issues like that I got out of the dollar bins before I started collecting any ongoing books. And then he was also in that Spider-Man animated series in the early 90s, the one that was around the same time as the X-Men. Except, of course, he couldn't kill anyone in that, but it was still kind of fun in that show. And then they had him with Blade and Morbius and Spider-Man, so it was pretty cool seeing those characters together.
Whoever
and that video game you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Well, I've been playing the old 1993 Punisher video game just in the last couple of days. It's a fantastic game, absolutely fantastic. And
yeah, I saw that in the arcade as well. Like back then.
You want to talk about it's the perfect type of game to capture his character in the sense that like there is nothing else to do in the game except for kill bad guys. Like it's like
punch people and shoot people.
Yeah, punch and shoot, burn as well if you want to use the flamethrower and chase some punks down an alley and just burn them.
Precedes Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and Aliens vs Predator because both those games had loads of weapons in it that Capcom did.
You can definitely tell though that the developers were actually into the source material because there is just lots of good, kingpins in there. They just do it well. Like even the way you can kind of you do some like classic kind of Frank Castle things, interrogating punks before you give them the old exits, throwing guys off trains, throwing guys off moving trucks. It's just you can just do all that cool Punisher stuff that you love doing to bad guys.
Yeah.
That reminds me. I'd never played that properly until this week. I was having a great time.
That arcade game was awesome. And then years later on PS2 and Xbox, it was a really good Punisher game then. And the Tom Jane actually did the voice for the game as well because he had been in the movie at the time. The game was a separate thing based on the comics. It was mostly based on the Welcome Back Frank story arc. But in that game, you get like flamethrowers and all kinds of cool weapons, and you can do like knives and get guys and shove them into like bandsaws and close windows on guys' necks.
It's the perfect type of property to just do that straight, balls to the wall, just like violent hack and slash type of game. Yeah, just perfect for it. But like for me, I think my first actual look at the character, I had seen him on a couple of comic book covers, and I'd also randomly seen action figure of him because in the back of the Toy Biz X-Men figures did have these like Marvel characters, and Punisher was just there. I thought he was a bad guy just by the look of him. Just if you didn't know, you might think he was a villain. But yeah, it wasn't probably until the 90s Spider-Man cartoon that you mentioned there briefly, where I think he comes in. It's like season 2 or season 3. He comes in during the storyline where Spider-Man is going through his mutation problems, and the Punisher is trying to.
Spiders.
That's right. Yeah. Get to see. I have to say though, given the limitations of the show and what they're allowed to actually show in terms of violence, they did a pretty decent job with the Punisher in the sense. They were I can never remember the guy's name. His Frank's assistant that he has helping him.
Microchip.
Microchip, yeah. Like he's trying to tell him, Frank, if we can bring Spider-Man in alive, it would do a lot to help your reputation. And that's there's a reason so that he's not trying to actually kill Spider-Man. He's trying to change his public image. So it's the cartoon's way of kind of getting around the fact that we can't really have him do anything that's, too extreme or too gory. He's just going to apprehend him. He's going to tie him up with ropes and nets and all that type of good stuff. He's going to gas him, knock him out, and ultimately maybe bring him to the police. But he's definitely not going to hold a gun to his head and pull the trigger like you're expecting he would do under normal circumstances.
Yeah,
that was my first intro to him.
Like Punisher's been through different kind of looks over the years. He's never really changed super dramatic, but his early look was like the 70s, was like the gloves and the boots and obviously the big white skull logo, which turns into the teeth are like bullets around his belt. And then also that slip back hair that was like real kind of greasy, like, you know, hair gel kind of slicked down here, and Widow's Peak and all that. That was kind of his classic look. And but as we get into like the more modern era and Garth Ennis era, he gets a bit more. Wears like more like casual, regular clothes that would blend in better. And my favorite look really in the Garth Ennis era is when he wears the big heavy trench coat, because it covers the skull logo so you can't see it. But when he walks into somewhere and he kicks the door open, he's like flipping that jacket open, like they're like, shit, it's the Punisher. But he can still walk down the street. Someone's not going to notice this big crazy skull logo from a block away.
I suppose when he was first introduced in the Spider-Man series, you have to remember as well, this is maybe not during the era of time where you're going to see people in their like band t-shirts and heavy metal t-shirts with black t-shirts with skulls on them. So a dude wearing a black t-shirt with a skull on it was not as normal as it is nowadays, when you see literally every second person on the street wearing some type of iconography of a skull or a skeleton on a black t-shirt. Frank popularized that fashion trend.
Yeah, I had one t-shirt I had wore for about 10 years, and I mean it's been fallen apart, disintegrated a long time ago. It was just the classic Punisher logo, like the skull. If I go back here, like that one there, like that skull, but it was all done. It was a black shirt, and it was done all in the camo pattern, like kind of brown and green, like forest camo. It looked really cool, but I missed that shirt. I couldn't wear it here because it was more thicker material you could wear in a wintry climate, whereas here in the summery Perth is no good, like too hot anyway. But it fell apart years ago, and there hasn't been any more in the stores ever since. You can still get Spider-Man, Captain America, all the Marvel stuff, but I mean, it was before the MCU movies started. That's how long ago I had that shirt.
Yeah, it's funny in that first appearance in the Spider-Man story as well, because he's like, you know, obviously, like you're saying, like everybody's all gung-ho to bring in Spider-Man, you know, if he's this supposed criminal that, you know, the papers are always writing bad stuff about him. But, you know, he's Punisher. He's not that suspicious of the Jackal, who's clearly, you know...
Yeah. It's a weirdo with a green costume.
Yeah, like literal evil oozing off him. He's also meeting him in this like
the
underground lab.
Like, most good guys aren't called that.
Yeah, I think I'd be a bit more suspect of this guy who's like putting out this this contract on Spider-Man or whatever, you know. But it's like everything else. It's like you introduce these characters, like you said, you think it might be just a one and done, or they're not going to go anywhere. So you know, you get to flesh them out more.
Yeah, he's not someone you could have predicted based on his early stories sticking around for the long term, but I'm glad he did. Favorite Marvel, or just favorite comic book characters, really. And he's gone through different levels of popularity. He's had a bunch of films, all of which are fairly dodgy. When they made that Netflix TV show, I thought, oh great, finally they'll do something more like Garth Ennis Punisher. They'll do something for adults. It'll be mature, like watching The Shield or The Wire or some HBO show. I'm like, no, it was fairly garbage. It starts off with some promising ideas, but then kind of goes off the rails by not having the Punisher wear his outfit, not having him basically going around shooting criminals or doing anything like the comics. And then on top of that, they have him just sitting around talking a lot, which is like the last thing the fucking Punisher does is sit around talking all day and not shooting people.
Yeah, the Punisher is a man of action. He's not a negotiator.
They had, remember in Daredevil back when it was Netflix before the shit, they had Daredevil season 2, and it was the Frank Miller era of like Daredevil Punisher in that later season versus The Hand. That was like probably the best Marvel TV's ever been in those modern shows. Like they did the Jessica Jones, the Luke Cage. And Daredevil season 1, season 2 was awesome, and then everything after that, like the team up one they did that they called Defenders, that was just awful. But that version of the Punisher, which is John Bernthal, the same guy went on to be in the Solo TV show, who was in The Walking Dead and all that, that he was excellent in that, and that tone and that style was spot on. And I thought more of that. And then when they did the Solo show, it just went completely all over the place, and just I went from being real hopeful for that TV show and thinking, looking forward to it, to just narrow dread that it even exists in the first place.
That's the thing, though, maybe about the character, though. You mentioned earlier about the kind of maybe the likeness or the inspiration to like Dirty Harry or Charles Bronson in the Death Wish movies. You kind of need, if you're putting him on screen, it needs to be in a real serious, dirty, gritty type of, you know, and not be afraid to shy away from actual, not just you know, your straight up violence and beat 'em up stuff, but maybe like a simplistic enough story as well of him just going to take down criminality. I think where that,
not hard
because I
to
actually
do.
did
There's
watch
loads of films that have done that sort of thing well, that are just basic action films and grindhouse films. Like the closest
show,
one,
I
the closest one to the modern
TMNT
Punisher was that one with was it Ray Winstone, the one by that Lexi whatever, the female director that so he had Tom Jane, and then after that, and he's big, he's bulky, he's got the slick back. He definitely had the look and the presence of like he was the best looking screen Punisher, but the movie was very uneven and went from fairly violent, but it was like it got to like Looney Tunes cartoonish violence and got a bit too silly.
Yeah, you need to get the tone right as well. Like you just.
And I think they had bloody McNulty from The Wire was Jigsaw in that, and he played it like a Cesar Romero Joker, and that was just awful. It was like a mix of like 60s Batman meets the hardcore ultra-violent Punisher. It was just like, no, there was too many different styles and tones going on in that film.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it's a tricky. You need to really know what it is you have when you're dealing with something like the Punisher. I think it's just it's kind of not to try and compare apples and oranges, but it's kind of like when we were talking about Hellboy there last week.
Yeah.
It's another one of these things where you get it right. You need a very specific mix of alchemist things going on just to have it hit right. Otherwise, it loses what it is once you start fucking around with it too much.
Yeah.
Like any type
like,
of
less is more. Like when there's too much in it, it's just, you know, you don't need too much story and too much character and too much motivation. Punisher. You need to have a little bit of mystery and a little bit of we don't fully understand this guy, you know.
I do love. I've seen it now. I saw it in the picture when you put up your stack of comics there, but also now in here that welcome back Frank cover is pretty cool with him just holding the sniper rifle. I was rereading that story this week as well. Believe it or not, I actually was given that graphic novel by my father. May he rest in peace. He was a big reader of books, but he rarely read comic books, at least not in his adulthood. But he was, coincidentally enough, a big Dirty Harry fan. So, of course, when he read a bit of Punisher, he thought it was quite good. And he happened to have read that Welcome Back Frank story before I even knew it existed. And he handed it to me in the house one day. He's like, I think you'd like this, because he knew obviously I was a voracious comic book reader myself. So we had a shared interest there for the old Punisher for a while. With that,
that's an awesome way to get that story.
Yeah, and it's a great story too. It's just a great, like, you know, it's Frank. He's been out of the game for a while, and now he's kind of returning to the scene, and it's just a great, like, just a great idea of him, you know, coming back out of the shadows and unleashing fear onto the local criminal population again, and taking down Madame Ganucci and her entire mob gang, like one by one, and some real brutal deaths he gives people in it as well.
Yeah, it's very
like
brutal. And then there's a lot of comedy in it as well.
Cage. Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so well written. Yeah, real dark comedy, but it's so good. And like
for long time Marvel people, that was like post year 2000, I believe, that Welcome Back Frank came out. And Garth Ennis was well known, of course. He did like Hitman for DC. I mean, Preacher, of course, was this big Vertigo thing, and it was well known since then to like comic book geeks and that. And I'd never bought any of the stuff by him. That was probably one of the first things I read from him, and I didn't own it until this year, but I've read it multiple times and had it from the library and all that. And that book was the one that got me going, oh, if he comes back and does more Punisher or something, I'll be into that. And fortunately he did. And I forget how many years later he came back. They relaunched the series under the Max imprint, which is on the cover of those top of those trades there. the early ones they did like Luke Cage, or just called Cage. They did one that's like Rhodey War Machine. It was basically trying to be like a Marvel Vertigo, but basically just no comics for adults where I can swear and be violent, not for the sake of it, but where you can do different material that we don't want to market to 12-year-olds. Basically, was the idea of the Max imprint, and it kind of went nowhere for a lot of the Max stuff. But the Punisher's the only one that really stuck around and had a full run. I think it was about 40 or 50 issues, or however long it was. But they were really excellent. And the awesome thing is about the Max stories and Garth Ennis getting to come back and play around this Marvel sandbox again. They let him do what he wanted. And he said, when he came back to the character, he said, I don't want to do Marvel like 70s superhero Punisher and the boots and the thing. And he wants to make it different than the Marvel. It's still technically it's Marvel Universe adjacent. So he's not running into Spider-Man and Wolverine and Daredevil and all that. And it's more like he's more like a regular ex-soldier military guy who's been in Vietnam, and his own story, more like watching Tour of Duty and shit like that. So it's not a superhero thing. It's more like a regular guy, real military equipment, guns, lots of references. When you see equipment, whether it's helicopters or tanks, jeeps and shit, it's like drawn from photo references and real things, and not from like made up nonsense like a lot of the time you get when lazy artists can't be bothered doing things properly. So Ennis came back and he did a miniseries called Born, and basically this was like a new origin for the Punisher, not for the origin of when his family gets killed in the park. Before that, and it's back in Vietnam in the 70s when he's a soldier, and saying they kind of like it's like a retcon basically, but saying that like that desire to like kill or be a maniac or just that capacity is saying that was in him before his family got murdered because he'd been in Vietnam and killed a lot of people. It's like, and but also saved a lot of people and got all these commendations and medals and shit, but came home and was like shell-shocked and PTSD and couldn't fit back into society, and just like watching like fucking like Platoon and movies like that, or bloody what's the other one that one with Tom Cruise and that, where he's in the wheelchair and that and comes back after the war, and just like all those like post Vietnam era films where everyone's just like fucked up and can't fit back into society. It was more like a more real take on an over the top character. So in Born, it's way back in Vietnam. It's like, I think it was like 4 issues. And I did collect that miniseries back in the early 2000s. And this preceded Garth Ennis's full long run on a brand new Punisher series where he got to do a whole bunch of story arcs. And the cool thing is he got to actually bookend these story arcs with Born. And he had another one called, see here, it literally says in the beginning, this is like the first issue after Born of the ongoing series. I'll just skip ahead a moment here, because they did another one called The End, which was like a Marvel event. They did this for everyone, like Hulk, The End, Spider-Man. They fast forward like several decades, post-apocalyptic future. It's meant to be like, this is the end of the Marvel universe. Mostly fairly garbage comics. But the Punisher one's fun because Garth Ennis got to do his own little in-continuity stories that were separate than the Marvel universe, where the Punisher ages in real time. So when you see him in the other comics, he's like in his 60s and he's still like killing people. And when people run into him, they're like, holy shit, this guy's still going when he's in his fucking 60s. And he's talking about second and third generation mobs and Goombas he's killing now. It's like just so over the top. But it's awesome that Garth Ennis got to do his own stories, got to his own beginning, middle, and end, and pretty much have the definitive story of the Punisher. But they're all just their own stories you can read, but they do go together as well if you do read them together.
I wouldn't actually mind reading the End one, because I've read a couple of those from that series. I've read the Wolverine one and possibly X-Men as well, and
yeah,
the X-Men wasn't great. The Wolverine one was good though, so I probably would give Punisher a chance, just especially knowing who actually wrote it and did it. It's probably a decent spin, I would say. So
I didn't even remember it existed, but I was flipping through these trades today and it was in there, and I was like, oh yeah. No, I remember.
Yeah, it's definitely he's a character you need to kind of treat carefully. There's a real kind of nice I suppose kind of subplot to the main plot of his quest to take down the mob in that Welcome Back Frank story, is the fact that he actually he inspires a lot of copycat would-be vigilantes that, you
Yes.
know, go on their own kind of reign of terror in the city, but they're not really as pure of method and of mind as the
No,
Punisher
they're all a
is.
bit
Like,
demented and selfish,
yes,
and
there's the crazy priest who, when, you know, people confess their sins to him, he ends up like hacking them up with an axe.
yeah.
And there's the guy, his name is Elite. He doesn't like riffraff coming into his posh
Yeah, he's like a
neighborhood. So
wealthy
anytime,
arsehole. Like,
yeah,
he doesn't like
like he,
people making the neighborhood look poor or dirty.
yeah, and like at the start you think, oh well, maybe he's not the worst. He's like, you know, only getting like heroin dealers and stuff. But then later on,
Yeah,
you see he's like attacking people just because they had like a hot dog stand and stuff like
yeah,
that. Like anything that he perceives as being, you know, below the standard of the neighborhood, it's not kind of well to do enough, he wants to get rid of. And then there's another guy who's all about kind of bringing justice to corporations, and he's like assassinating CEOs and stuff like that. But
yeah,
even though his cause is pretty worthwhile, but his methods are very careless. Like he's constantly killing innocent people in the crossfire, and there's a lot of you know, collateral damage with these type of hits he's kind of pulling off. So yeah, you get this whole kind of sub story about how the Punisher himself is like a figure, kind of inspires others to take up the mantle and maybe commit extreme acts in order to,
yeah.
you
They've had
know, to
other
get their own
stories too,
form of justice.
like in the 80s and 90s ones where other bad guys have impersonated him, like Jigsaw has like impersonated the Punisher and gone out and done a whole bunch of crimes to basically try and frame the Punisher, who doesn't kill innocent people and doesn't kill children and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's yeah, you can get a lot out of him, like depending on what you're working with. And he's one of those characters where I don't think you want to mixing in too much with your mainstream level superheroes anyway, because it
No,
dilutes them it would dilute them too much to be kind of fucking around with all their shenanigans. There is I'll say one thing. There's a really nice moment between him and Daredevil in Welcome Back, Frank, where you know, Punisher, he's sat up on a rooftop, he's getting ready to do like a sniper hit on this mob boss who's coming out of a courthouse, and Daredevil shows up to try and stop him, but Punisher gets the better of him. He's like a special little dog whistle that drives Daredevil's senses crazy, and he's able to disorientate him enough that he can knock him out and tie him up. And when Daredevil wakes up, he's completely tied up except for one
yeah,
free hand. It's got a pistol with one bullet in it pointing at the Punisher, and Punisher's like, oh, you've got a choice. You can either shoot me in the head and stop me from killing this mob boss, or you can do nothing, and I'm just going to go ahead and shoot this mob boss, you know. And
yeah. I
it's just a
love that
great
scene.
moment.
And just the fact that Daredevil wakes up with the hand of his gun is a nice callback to that Frank Miller run, that famous cover where he's got the gun on the cover.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And of course, we do actually see in that moment as well that Daredevil did in the end go to pull the trigger, but
Yeah,
Frank had
he
the
did.
firing pin removed, so he was thinking ahead.
It's like
Yeah, it
Daredevil
was just
he'd rather kill Punisher than have some more proper criminal killed.
yeah,
Don't
he
like you,
he
Daredevil.
takes
It's not
this
very nice.
yeah. Yeah, you're
Very
taking this
nice at all.
lawyer stuff
Yeah.
way too seriously, Matt.
So in this first
Fast
issue of
Fred.
this ongoing series they did back in the 2000s, this was after Welcome Back, Frank, where it relaunched as the Max in its own little continuity, and it's kind of almost a different character than what's come before because it's just like separate. You don't see other Marvel characters popping up, with the exception of one character who turned up a couple of times as Nick Fury, but it's not Nick Fury David Hasselhoff style. It's more like 70s Nick Fury, or it's more like World War II Nick Fury. He's just like a hardcore guy. Always, he's like semi-retired, but he's always got a cigarette in his mouth. He's swearing like nobody's business, and has a couple of like discreet meetings with the Punisher kind of off the books and that. But he has like respect for him. He's not like trying to catch him or anything. But yeah, in this first issue, it starts off really strong for the tone of the series. Punisher goes to this big mob birthday. This like old capo is turning like 100 years old, but he's like in a wheelchair and not far off dying. So kind of it's a birthday celebration, but it's like, oh, who's going to die and who's going to take over the families and all that. So all the East Coast, West Coast, whoever, Chicago, Detroit, they're all coming together for this big meet. There's over 100 people here. And he turns up, I'm not good with the names of the guns, but this is one of those big mounted guns like you would use on an embankment with sandbags. I've been aiming like at a hill when people are rushing out of the jungle. And he opens up fire on all these guys when he lures them out. He goes into the house and shoots a couple of guys and lures them out to the field and just like start mowing them down. And this is like the beginning of the series, just like really setting the tone of how this is going to go. Just like ruthlessly efficient, saving time.
Yeah, he Rambo fours them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fairly
the
graphic.
Artwork here is
exploding and guts everywhere and stuff.
Yeah, I love seeing that like brain confetti going everywhere.
And you can see his face. He's much older, and his face is like real scarred and wrinkled. He's like way older than we've ever seen him before.
Yeah, he looks like a proper badass, though.
Yeah,
I really actually love this.
And he's pretty much the thickest and heaviest we've ever seen him as well.
Yeah, he's been getting jacked up, you know, in the gym. It's too bad we never got, like, I know, was it Dolph Lundgren? Did he do one of the Punisher
Yeah,
movies?
the first one where it was like in '89 or something like that. He was always in the VHS rental store. I've still never watched it to this day. I will watch it.
Imagine like a late '80s, early '90s Stallone as Punisher. I wonder what that would work. Or maybe even better yet, an old man Stallone as an old man Punisher. That could work, maybe. You know?
Expendables. I was watching Expendables 4 the other day. It was not good.
I haven't made it that far yet.
Oh, I got the combo set. It's got 4 in it. I haven't seen that one, so I thought I'll give it a watch. I'm like, nah. It wasn't
the reason I thought Stallone there was in that bottom picture we actually see Frank's kind of messed up face. He almost looks like Rocky Balboa at the end of Rocky Balboa at the SYXX movie.
In the series, there's a bunch of times where people refer to him. He's just like a walking slab of meat. He's just relentless.
Yeah.
He just comes for you. And he doesn't stop. He gets shot and stabbed, and he just keeps coming because he's just so big and he can take the bloody damage before he passes out and shit. And there's a bunch of times in this where he gets seriously injured in this ongoing run, where he does pass out or bloody ties himself up and passes out, nearly dies, and occasionally someone helps him out so he doesn't bleed to death. But in the back of some of these trades too, here they're showing references for Bourne, like they did quite a bit of references from like 70s era stuff. This is like a real life guy down here, like showing off his nice weapons. And then here, this is like all equipment that was actually used in like Vietnam era, as far as like buildings and helicopters and whatnot. And so they did quite a bit of research for that Bourne series. And in that kind of outro thing, they're saying that the artist guy who was doing the research passed this on to some people to do with his family and that, and some actual veterans read the series and looked over and like quite complimentary to it, the level of research and how kind of accurate it was to showing like on the locations and the equipment and the style of things and that.
It's really nice that they included. That's obviously like a nice is that like a hardback or is that just
a
trade?
Yeah, it's a soft cover version of what would have been hard covers at one point.
Yeah, nice that they actually included that.
Like they've reprinted these 2 or 3 times by now. I've just got the most recent ones the last couple of years because I used to have I had like these issues in the single run that I bought for several years from the comic shop. At some point, I moved in countries and states and I dumped a lot of my old comics just to get rid of them. So when they came out in these affordable phone book soft covers, I just grabbed the whole complete run of Garth Ennis again. So I was pretty happy to get them.
Man of Stone.
Yeah, this is like and all the run, which goes for, I don't know, I want to say it's like 40 or 50 issues, something like that. Ran for a good number of years. He did a whole bunch of different stories, like, you know, beginning, middle, and end. And there was a couple that kind of tie together that were like really like my highlights really of his whole run. This one, Man of Stone, it's about that name refers to this old Russian general who's the guy at the top left. He kind of looks a bit like a small version of the Kingpin of the bald head. He's this old general out of the old Soviet era, sort of Cold War era Russia, where he's kind of redundant now. But you know, but then it calls back also to kind of like in the 80s, like Rocky, Rambo 2 and 3, that in Afghanistan and Russia and all that sort of stuff is kind of in the background of the story. All the things that have gone on with the bloody CIA and training people to do this and that, and the ones that went on to be the Taliban and stuff like that, and then all the arms trade, all that stuff is just kind of background on the story. But in this one, we find out about this Man of Stone guy. He's just like really brutal and terrible. Apparently he's committed all these war crimes and never faced any punishment for it because he was too high up in the power structure in Russia and has too many old school friends that kept him from ever going to prison or anything for war crimes, even though it's well known that he's just a like terrible person. He's almost like another like Russian Punisher kind of guy if he had like no morals and no values whatsoever and didn't care if he killed women and children and massacred villages or any of that shit. He's that level of just evil and horrible.
I was trying. I'm going to do it. I'll read it out anyway. Opening line of this.
Oh, I left that on purpose. I thought you'd see that.
Yeah, I actually never read this one, believe it or not.
Yeah, this was towards the end of the run, so it's probably my favorite. Like I've read this 2 or 3 times now. But yeah, there's a heap of stuff going on in the story, but it basically connects into the one that follows it up. Where here we've got the bottom right, we've got Nick Fury. I think I got it. Yeah, we got a close up here. So Fury pops up a couple of times, and you can see like the Punisher's face is just like. See, he's got scars, and it's like Abdullah the Butcher on his bloody forehead, man. He's got like scars and marks and combat wounds, and he's just this old living fossil at this point. He's not superhero Nick Fury. He's just like retired old man Fury. But here he goes, talking to Punisher. He goes, if you're wondering how that prick got out early, released from murder and child prostitution, the answer is I got him out. Then I kept tabs on him. I needed to find you fast because he lets a guy out of prison who's terrible because he knows the Punisher will come and get him. So that's how he can find Punisher and have a meeting with him. And he goes, it's just me. No SWAT teams, no bullshit of any kind. Wanted to talk a little business. So actually sets him up on a mission. And here the dialogue, he goes, one job, high risk, just about impossible. You fuck up, no one's ever heard of you. So it's real like Black Ops stuff. He sends him into Russia. So, you know, behind enemy lines, even though at this point in the modern era, Russia and America meant to be, well, different now. But at the time this comic came out, they were neutral. This was post-Cold War. They were meant to be friendly, but not really. You know, there was always bitter men that are like have let go of hatred. But he sends him over to Russia. There's this virus which is like a super, like worse than Ebola super weapon that's been developed in a lab, and that's meant to be for whoever the hell paid for it. Someone else has got their hands on it, and then it's been injected into this little girl who was the daughter of the researcher that developed it because he knew they were going to kill him. And that was a way. It's demented, but the way he wanted to keep his daughter alive is he gave her this horrible, deadly virus, but she's just the carrier of it that won't kill her. But everyone else, it basically kills him within 24 hours. But his mission is to go in to Russia and extract this girl. But there's lots of other details they don't really tell him and all sorts of other bullshit.
It's interesting. It's a very Resident Evil plot line.
Pretty much.
I'll inject my daughter with the Chi virus.
It's a super like more deadly than anything on Earth virus. But that's the MacGuffin. But it actually sets up really well for the story.
I must actually get this. I'm going to try and pick up a few Punisher trades while they're still relatively easy to acquire, or at least affordable to acquire. Probably in the new year I'm going to try and snatch up. I might actually try and get another. I've kind of settled. I don't mind reading black and white stuff anymore, really. I'll probably buy another couple of volumes of the Essentials, but I do want to get some of these modern, or like, they're probably not even modern anymore. They're like 10, 15 years old now, but some of the more modern trades I'd like to pick up as well. Just to beef up my Punisher materials a bit.
Sounds
I'm
like
a bit light on that side of things.
Yeah, I got lucky when these ones come out in the last, I don't know, sometime in the last 5 to 8 years. My memory's foggy, but I got them when they were new as they came out, and I didn't know if they were even going to, at that time, I didn't know if they were even going to complete the damn things, because often they would start reprinting stuff and then stop if it didn't sell well, but fortunately they did them all. But yeah, so there's another catch here too, saying that they've got to get it in the next 48 hours, or basically the girl will eventually die or whatever, but not with the virus, just because of she's still the carrier. And if they want to, they have to get the girl so they can get from her blood a sample, because this is like the most valuable bioweapon on the market and everybody wants it. So that's why they want to get it. And they can't send any official soldiers or action from America into there, because it'll cause a massive international incident. And the whole virus thing is super secret, hush hush anyway, that no one's even meant to know about in the fucking first place. So it's like, it's like all the stuff like, why the hell would you send Frank Castle over there? It's like,
yeah, send over the man who's going to make a lot of noise, you know, blow up a lot of shit.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the background, but ends up getting sent over there. He parachutes in. He gets sent along with another American guy who's like a high level, like a kind of special forces Navy SEAL type of dude, who's like a real Captain America sort, except like his orders are different. His orders are just like, get the sample no matter what, even if it means killing the girl and killing the Punisher. Which Frank, being Frank, who wanted to go alone, he pretty much knows that it's really predictable. He knows that that's why that guy's there. There's no other reason to be there.
Yeah, it's I'm digging this artwork, man. There's some brutal death scenes going on here.
It gets crazy as it go on, because it turns out it's not just an old semi-retired military base with like minimal staff who just, you know, they kind of have like guards at the front and watch people come and go and clock in and out. They go to a local bar, and that's how they get fake IDs and stuff. They know where the guys go off hours work to the bar that's down the road after work. They go in and start a bar fight. So it just looks like a regular bar fight, but then they beat them up and take their IDs and uniforms and shit. I'll be 2 seconds, little Pedro's going off.
I got the meow alarms going off today. My roadie was meowing like a madman at the beginning of the recording. But this is what happens. Our Boba Joe overlords are also cats, as it turns out. So we serve our masters. But no, I have to say I've been enjoying this little look at Punisher comics that I have not read. It's just, he's one of those characters that, even though he's always been a presence and being in and around the stuff I've been reading, I've just never really focused solely on him as a character. I was even saying to Johnny before we started recording today, I have 0 Punisher representation in my toy collection at all. Not one figure, not one solitary from any era, from even that old Toy Biz figure I mentioned earlier back in the day. I saw it, but I never actually owned it. So I am looking at the moment of some of the more modern.
I think I've got 3. I got releases. One. I got that first ever Marvel Legends one they did, where it was the Warzone John Romita Jr. look with the kind. Well, look, his face looks like mine, doesn't it? With the beard and all that. Still got that one from ages ago. That one's quite nice. And then I've got 2 of the modern ones that are just like, one's the camo one where he's got the camo face and the shirt, which is from a story where he goes into Afghanistan, but not this story, a different one. And the third one was just another head. Actually, if we go back for the very first image, have a quick look at it. I'll come back to this. Yeah, that one on the bottom right, that head is like the Jim Lee era, with he's got the headband in the 90s and that, but it's on a different body. It's just a generic body. I chucked it on there.
Yeah, at the moment there's like a Marvel Gamerverse, Marvel Legends Gamerverse kind of double pack collection. I'm sure
there's so in the last 10 years they've done so many Punisher figures. I've resisted getting more because I'm just like, nah, I don't need 10 million. I just
there's a double pack with Nick Fury and Punisher, and
oh, nice.
I wouldn't mind getting that pack just because I've been playing that Punisher video game this week. I am in kind of that zone. I like the look of they're kind of cartoonishly colored and stuff, but I can dig it. I could dig it if that was.
It's funny they're teaming up in that game and then they run into each other here. But there's did a story around 98, 99 called Over the Edge, where the Punisher killed Nick Fury. Except it turned out he didn't really kill Nick Fury, and Nick Fury also didn't really die. So it was a real wacky, weird story that was like real. It was a big gimmick thing where they basically ended the book and then launched another one. But they tried to make out he'd completely lost his mind and killed it. And it was like everyone in the Marvel universe, like Spider-Man, Avengers, are all chasing after him, convinced he's killed him, but he didn't kill him. It was a nonsense story, and it had a big gatefold hollow foil cover. It was very 90s.
Pulled a big switcheroo on you.
Yeah.
And at the end, everything went back to as it was.
It's like when Captain America was actually a Skrull. Was like, you know, it's one of those kind of switcheroo stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to this Punisher in this military base. They get in there. There's not many people actually work there, so they make their way through a lot of it, and it does feel a bit like that first Resident Evil movie. There's a lot of just corridors. It's meant to be a decommissioned base from, I think it's as old as the 50s or 60s, but they still have skeleton staff, and there's still active, you know, weapons and tanks and jeeps and missiles and shit in there. But it's not just a base; it's actually like a missile silo. So it's a pretty massive place with different levels and elevators, like underground, different levels and shit. But they basically go in and kill a few people that work there, and then when people get on the radio and work out that what's actually happened, they start sending other people down, like special ops and shit, down this elevator. And they just like, he's using like fucking grenades and flamethrowers and shit when the guys are coming out of the elevator, and they're just like, every guy they send down, they're just like wiping them out in 2 seconds because it's like it's a bottleneck to trying to get into where they are.
Massacre.
But it was meant to be a stealth mission: get in, get this girl, and get out. They weren't ready to be killing anyone, but other than a couple of guards. But because someone figures out the base would be infiltrated, which turns out to be that Russian general. He's just like evil but super smart and thinks kind of like the Punisher. He's like, officially they think it's some kind of terrorist or rogue nation, or they don't know who it is, and but only the general was the guy that kind of works it out. He's just like too smart and convinced. The Americans send this plane as a distraction while this is going on. The Americans send this plane, which is supposedly hijacked by Muslim terrorists, and then into Russian airspace, knowing that they'll shoot it down, as they do. But they're all fake terrorists who are Americans, who are like a fake American cell that was like over in the Middle East to like infiltrate and be undercover and shit. And that their job is to go on a plane and basically die for America. So it's pretty grim.
They jumped through many hoops to get these boys in, you know.
Yeah.
Distraction tactic. Definitely, I'm sure it never happened in real life at all. Hopefully,
yeah. So it kind of escalates to where it's like they've shot a few guys, and then they've exploded some guys coming on the elevator. Some guys are guarding an old tank. They're basically on their coffee break when the Punisher walks out and with a bloody RPG and fires it at them. Then you're like, commandeers the tank's not really active, but the big mounted gun on it, that's active. So he uses that and takes out a bunch more guys. It's just like full on, just like action movie action, all because they're trying to get this girl, and they do find her, and then it's like escort mission video game style. They've got to get her out of here somehow, but because so many guys are coming into this bloody silo, it's completely impossible to get out again. There's just no way, because they kill everybody, but they keep sending more special forces down, more and more, and just bloody killing rounds. And the Americans, and you see cutaways where like the Americans are on their ops and talking about stuff, and they listen to all the international chatter, and the Russians are all behind the scenes doing their little stuff about what's supposedly happening. And in this scene here, the guys who hired Nick Fury, these guys hired Nick Fury who hired the Punisher, and they're a bunch of like armchair generals are pretty useless. The dialogue here is the best. There's like the guys going, "This is your fault. You sent that fucking maniac in there. He's targeted every city in Russia. He's got to start World War III because he lights up the whole there's no way out. He lights up all the missile silo and he starts targeting Russia's nuclear weapons at Russia in the main cities of Moscow. And it lights up on all their satellites and it's active and it's a real warhead and it's going to go off.
Love this one. What the fuck is wrong with you, Fury? What kind of demented asshole puts the Punisher in a missile silo?
And his answer is like, all of you shut the fuck up. And it's not because he's being a dick. It's because he knows the Punisher's not actually going to drop a nuclear bomb on anybody. He knows he's doing it to like psych them out and fuck with them to find a way out of the base.
This should be made into like an animated movie at the very least.
It would be great as an animated, like one of those one-off specials. But they skipping ahead, but the way they get out is like, when first time I read it, I'm like, man, they're fucked. There's no way they can get out. And what can they do? They have to come up with some crazy nonsense thing. So they do fire the missile, but it's not it's armed to launch, but not to explode or whatever. So it shows up on the satellites as genuine. But he climbs inside the bloody thing, fights, but they fire themselves in the missile out of it. That's how they get out of the base. Which I've seen something like that in another movie where someone was in a submarine and did that and fired out into the water. So it like basically like, it comes apart and they parachute out of it, which is a bit ridiculous, but they come up with some nonsense MacGuffin of how to get out of it. So they do save the girl, but the other guy, the other special forces guy that's teamed up with them down the bottom left there's like the guy with the blonde hair. He tries to kill the Punisher, of course, because he tries to kill the girl, and Punisher's like no, and like beats the shit out of him, and then doesn't kill him, which is really surprising. So he manages to get out of there and get this girl out of there.
Saving the girl. By saving the girl, do you mean they managed
She's the virus carrier?
Yeah, but do they manage to like does her being saved really translate to her like now being stuck in a fucking American lab for the rest of her life?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what they want. They sent the Punisher because they knows he won't kill children, whereas any of their own special forces, they'll just be like, oh, we'll kill the kid, get the blood, let's go home.
Yeah, that's
why Fury said of it, because this unrepentant sociopathic killer is the most moral person they can send into this horrible environment. So I think it's part of what makes the story work so well is we know the Punisher is this terrible, terrible human being, but he won't kill kids. And then some more dialogue here too, where this kids become attached to him because she's like saved him, and like Resident Evil 4 with Leon, it's like go hide over here and hide behind this bench or behind the desk while I take care of business, and then we'll get the fuck out of here. It's that kind of thing. And then he has to leave, and the kid's like, "Why, Frank? Why? Don't leave me. I want to look after you, Frank. What do you do?" And he's like, "Can't, Galena. I can't look after anyone." And it's so grim. It's just like, because my family's dead. All I do is kill people for a living.
That's Stallone face here once again, though. I can definitely see Old Man Stallone pulling this off, Or Garl.
I think earlier in the story, she picks up one of the guns from the floor, and he's like, "No, don't touch that."
That was the lesson that he imparted upon her, It's the reason
basically, everybody in the story is a bigger asshole than the Punisher. Nick Fury's a worse asshole. The general's just unrepentantly evil. All the armchair generals are terrible and selfish, and just like all of them are just like far worse than him as human beings. They're just, I love the way that only a writer like Garth Ennis could really show that contrast, that all the other characters are actually worse than him. They're just like terrible human beings.
Well, look, we had this kind of, I suppose, this moral discussion when we reviewed Dirty Harry way back in the day. Like,
he throws that badge right in the first one.
What Frank Castle does, he does. I don't know. Like I'm not saying, I'm not encouraging anybody now to go out and do as Frank Castle does.
Yes, we are. Everybody should follow his example. No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Like at the end of the day, like it is vigilanteism, but you can't help but kind of admire the fire. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, some of the other stories
done.
Yeah, he's always going after like mob guys and goons and goombas and all that sort of thing. But one of the things I like in the Garth Ennis stories, he really touches on topics people don't want to talk about in polite society, like fucking sex trafficking, including children, violence against women, various drug addictions and stuff. It's not just him endlessly shooting mob guys, which is a lot of that, which is classic Punisher fodder. There's a lot of stuff where it shows really sympathetic to people that are normally ignored in society, or and horrible crimes and things that go on that you don't typically hear about in the news, but they're going on all the fucking time around the world. He's kind of drawing attention to those things, and you do feel kind of like vindictively happy when he busts on someone who's like some kind of fucking kiddie fiddler and just like bang, you're gone. I'm just like, yeah. Nobody's going to miss that person.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate form of justice, and it is a nice, refreshing contrast to your usual kind of upper card Marvel fare, where you've got all these superheroes, and they're trying to stop the end of the universe and blah blah blah. But down here on the streets, we've got one man who's keeping it together, and bringing criminals to death. He's just he's doing a job, and he's keeping the streets safe.
I love how Garth Ennis, he shows the Punisher even, it's hard to do, but he shows him as human, but he's just like beyond giving a shit about much of anything, like, because he's been doing it so long. He's like ruthlessly efficient at what he does, and it's like, I don't know, I think of it like, it's like, sometimes they call it Frank Castle, he's like the garbage collector. It's like, well, do people really want to collect garbage? No, but someone's got to do it. It's like, someone's got to take the trash out. And it's kind of what he does. He's just like, yeah, someone's got to do it. So it's not like it's not like he's meant to be an actual psychopath or may. He's perfectly sane. He knows what he's doing. He's just like, these are terrible people. The legal system's failing. The cops are failing. He's like, I'm going to get rid of them. So we don't encourage that kind of thing. But it is very satisfying to read. But there is some, this is a very serious sort of stories. There's occasional moments of lightheartedness, but or black humor in that. And there's the typical bit where, he busts into some crackdown or something, and people are like, oh shit, it's the Punisher. They start like running, they know who he is, and just start running for their lives, and it's just pointless.
Yeah, you're going down. Like he'll give people chances though too, and then if people
occasionally give someone a chance, it's like their first time or something, but most of the time the people are going afterwards are horrible, violent criminals who have killed and raped and murdered multiple times. Most of the people.
Yeah, he might bust in on the drug deal. He might kill the actual dealers, but he'll leave the users alive because it's kind of like you're the victim kind of in this scenario.
But yeah, it's a very satisfying run. These Garth Ennis stories that start off. The early ones starts off really strong. There's a few different ones. I think the second major story was called Kitchen Irish. There's a bunch of they're kind of like semi-retired IRA living in America, but they're trying to relive the glory days, and they start blowing up cafes and shit there, and it ends up being like a three-way war between three different groups. It was like these old IRA guys from the 70s, another group called the Westies, and then another group, but they're all in like New York and that. They're like migrants. But they're all kind of stuck in their old ways and fighting and all that.
And Frank has to come in and put an end to it all. No doubt.
Yeah, they just get mixed up with it accidentally. But there's some real authenticity to some of those stories too, because Garth Ennis being an Irish man and writer, one of the things he does well is he's an outsider's perspective of America, and sometimes it takes someone with that point of view to do an American character like Punisher really well, and better than some of the other writers who just do superhero stuff.
Yeah, he's uniquely placed to do that type of character work in his writing. So no, I'm definitely, as I was saying when you stepped out there briefly, you've definitely given me some food for thought. Just some of these more modern ones I haven't gotten a chance to read. I may as well pick them up now while they're still obtainable.
Yeah, I think this was the best the Punisher stories that ever been, like by far. And I say that having read everything from his first appearances to his solo miniseries, all his ongoing series from the first ones to whatever they're doing right now, I've read. And I can say I actually enjoy all of them. There's none I hate. Some are really stupid. Like they did one in the 90s where he died and became an avenging angel, and his guns were like mystical gun. That was incredibly stupid. Dead end. They did another one like that called Franken Castle, where he died again and became a Frankenstein's resurrected monster. And it's unbelievably stupid. But if you read it solo by itself, it's just wacky enough that it's kind of fun if you ignore everything else and don't connect it to any other stories. But yeah, they've done some real dumb things with the Punisher. And then the most recent story, he's become the top level assassin for the Hand, as in like the ninjas from the Daredevil comics. And I'm like, that just feels wrong headed.
Yeah.
I've read it though, and it's not terrible. It's enjoyable, but it's just doesn't make sense.
Well, you know, speaking of things that don't make sense, didn't they also release that Punisher toy in the mid-90s where you press a little button on his thighs and a gun comes up between his legs? Yeah, like cock gun.
I remember seeing that in the shops.
He's locked, cocked, and ready to unload.
It was in those Marvel Transformers. They weren't called Transformers, but you know that's what they did. They had Hulk and Spider-Man and Wolverine, but that was notorious. That one and the Tarzan toy from the same era that went like that with the action button.
Yeah, they've had their fumbles, definitely.
Yeah, I remember laughing at that toy in the shops, but man, I wish I could have bought it back then because it's just so kitchen silly. But it's honestly not a bad looking toy in the normal like man mode or man robot, whatever he is.
Yeah. Before he sticks his hand cannon between his legs.
Before he tries to halfway transform into Megatron, because the gun mode is absolute rubbish.
Oh. We're having Christmas and summertime.
Yeah, summertime Christmas for Boba Joe. Next week,
really poignant actually, because you know it's the winter time here, obviously, but it's going to be summertime there where Johnny is.
Yeah.
And now we have this weird sequel to a Christmas movie that's set in the summer, so it's all coming together.
The first two were at Christmas. This one's not, but. I just thought, what are we going to do? We might as well do the third one because we don't want to talk about any diehards after the third one. So the following years will have to be something different.
Yeah. The only time we'll talk about those other diehards is if they manage to make it into one of the bad movie battle royales.
Yeah, yeah. But that would have to be at least volume 3 or 4 of that because I've got some other stuff to get into.
Oh yeah, that barrel can be scraped a lot lower before we get to that level, you know. Yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Going to be we're going to be solving some puzzles before the timer runs out, before the bombs go off.
Yeah, Simon says.
Simon says, make sure you're pretty quick at doing numerical computations in your head, because otherwise you could be in trouble. Don't spill any of that water, whatever you do when you're doing that one where you have to get the exact amount of liters in the jug.
I might have a special request before we finish up. Now, Simon says Mark has to read the dialogue balloon on the top left there.
Where's the cunt?
There you go. You got to hear that in a proper Irish voice.
Yeah, folks, let us know your Punisher opinions and experiences. You know, like I said, I'm not like totally like I know my bits and pieces about Punisher, but I'm by no means a Punisher expert. Johnny was
I'm an
leading the way here today.
Fanboy.
Yeah, but
it's like Batman, Wolverine, Punisher. You got like they're all kind of variations of a theme, but they're all fun.
Yeah, we'll have to step into the world of Wolverine actually one of these days now as well. Of course,
might as well.
He's
he's had like the nice thing about the Punisher is you can read everything that they've ever published. You could read easily in 12 months. There's not that many actual books compared to other long-running characters. Whereas Wolverine's had a lot more comics now, not including his mainline books. His solo books have had quite a few, and I love Wolverine. There's a lot of take it or leave it stories and continuity. There's a lot of stuff they've fucked around with that character so much now it's not funny. Not in a good way.
Yeah, you got to pick and choose wisely. But look, you have to remember, folks, we are in the grand old age now, the year 2025. this stuff's been going on for so long, you're going to have bloat. You're going to have stuff that's just, it's no longer important, and it has nothing much to do about anything, but it just exists because the property has existed long enough now that all this shit's just come.
Yeah.
But you can
tell with some characters and things, they run out of ideas and they just keep regurgitating, doing stupid stuff, and it's like, no, you're ruining this character. Stop doing things.
You can't kill this guy for the third time. Will you just please come up with a new idea? Like, you know. But yeah, it's going to be Die Hard.
One of the last times Wolverine died, all this adamantium like melted out of him and encased him like a statue. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that would happen. It's just nonsense.
Yeah. He's definitely going to come back from this one, you know.
Yeah. Oh, apparently, I didn't know. But I was listening to a podcast the other week talking about the Fox and Disney and all the X-Men and Fantastic Four and shit. Apparently, one of the reasons they killed him and supposedly killed him in comics and downplayed him is because they're having trouble to do with wanting to do the movies and all that, and the rights and other shit. And so they brought over Old Man Logan from that Mark Miller alternate future story, and he became the main Wolverine for a number of years in the comics, which is weird.
Yeah, you know, when licensing and rights stuff kind of changes,
and Fantastic Four got cancelled because of all the issues with the Fox and the shit. That's before the Disney thing. So I didn't know that those stupid deals that go all the way back to the 90s and Stan Lee and RVR had selling off the company because it was going bankrupt, selling off movie rights, fucked up so many things for the long term. But that's a tale for another time, I think.
Yeah. It's the reason why we don't see characters like Blade and stuff often. Because
I'm pissed off there's not another Blade movie. He popped up in Deadpool 3, and I'm like, give us another fucking Blade movie and make it Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, he randomly pops up in that Marvel Zombies cartoon as well, believe it or not.
Nice.
So, but yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance next week. We're going to stop some bombs before they go off, and we're going to curse a lot.
We will indeed. You mother fudger. Be a lot of fluffy ducks next week.
Yeah. You punt. But yeah, I hope everybody had a nice time, and yeah, stay well, stay safe, and catch us next week.
Yeah, catch you all next time.